Well, welcome everybody. It's another episode of Talking Zed. Thanks for joining us. I hope your quarantine is going well. I got a great episode tonight. A director, visual effects supervisor, all-around good guy and great filmmaker is here joining us tonight. But first, if you're new to the show, this is a Z Nation fan show. The cool thing about it is that it's interactive, and if you look at your Zoom screen at the bottom, you'll notice there's a Q&A button. Hit that Q&A button, and if you have a question, it'll pop into our queue. If you like somebody's question and you think, hey, I should have asked that question, just give it a thumbs up, and it'll pop to the top of the queue. That makes us an interactive show. And who we're going to interact with? None other than Mr. Jason McKee. Jason, hey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be here.
How are you doing in the quarantine?
Good. Just, working on the yard, trying to stay home and, work on the garden and use that as an excuse to not be out and about.
Right on.
Yeah.
And have you created anything beautiful in your garden? We did a weeding last weekend that was crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been kind of re-landscaping our yard, just kind of trying to, make it look a little nice, putting in a flower garden and whatnot. I'm sure this is thrilling to talk about.
Hey, man, you got to survive the quarantine somehow. That's how I came up with the Talking Zed Show.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been doing because we're doing this show is I've started back in season 1 of and you were on the show since the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit and start with you as a filmmaker and how you got into film and where you were at, what you were doing prior to Z Nation coming to Spokane. Give us your background.
I mean, I was, going all the way back, I started as a production assistant, a PA, and worked my way up. I started back in 2001 on a Carmen Electra action film called Whacked, I think is what they ended up calling it. It was called Wet Work, but then they felt that sounded too perverted, so they changed the name to Whacked with an exclamation mark.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just worked my way up, and at that point, I was kind of the only person that was doing visual effects. I was doing visual effects in my own time, and just as a skill to better myself as a filmmaker. And if I wanted to write and direct something that had a castle over on the hill, I wasn't going to build it myself. I didn't want to pay anyone else to do it. So visual effects seemed like a good skill to have. So that's where that came from. And I enjoy it, but it's all in the, it's all for bettering myself as a filmmaker. And it's another tool in the tool belt. So I worked my way up doing that. And I was working with, or for North by Northwest Entertainment up until Z Nation. And then after Z Nation, I created Mode FX. And now we work with North by, but not for, and on other productions that are all over the world.
So you we're talking to you from Spokane, and that's where the show was on location for 5 seasons. That original Carmen Electra masterpiece, was that shot in Spokane?
That was, yeah.
Okay, so you've been there since your beginning in filmmaking.
Yeah, I was 19, and I think I was walking the hallway, at Home Depot, and I saw my 8th grade drama teacher. I think we were required to take drama, and as with anything else, and I saw him in the halls, and I had just graduated, or in the aisles, and he was like, "Hey, what are you doing? What do you want to do?" I was like, "I know it sounds silly, but I would like to direct film. I just don't know how to get into that. I'm sure I have to go to some film school or whatnot." And I was going to Spokane Falls Community College at that point and studying film and TV and taking photography. And with the with the plan of, you know, going on to another college after the first 2 years. And he goes, you should go talk to North by Northwest. They make films in here in Spokane. I was like, what? That just blew my mind. I didn't think anyone was doing that. So I started going to North by Northwest and dropping off the same shitty resume every 19-year-old has every 2 weeks. And I didn't loiter. I just dropped it off and said, hey, any word, any news? And I think they had like 8 or 9 of them. And then I finally, you know, once they had a project going, I got hired on as a production assistant, and, you know, then worked my way up from there. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what was the scene like? North by was doing, I mean, we were joking about that Carmen Electra, but they were doing kind of like direct-to-video films. What was it? You know, what was the scene like in Spokane?
Well, I mean, North by Northwest has always done. They're a for-hire production company and facility, so they generally don't create the content. They are oftentimes the lowest bidder, so they, you know, that. The talent is kind of up in the air. Whether or not the projects are going to be good depends upon who brings the project and who's already attached. So that varies. Sometimes we've gotten some really good films out of it, and oftentimes it is the lower tier. But that's nothing to do with the crew up here. You know, it's kind of a crapshoot on what projects are brought up, and we're generally cheaper than everywhere else to shoot, you know, and easier because you just don't have the permitting process that you do in places like LA or Atlanta.
Yeah. And I guess too, I mean, you learn, it doesn't matter if it's a straight to DVD movie or if it's a huge, I mean, the techniques are the same, you know, the background that you need to be successful, all those things don't really change much with the budget. So I was thinking more along the lines of just trying to figure out what the scene looked like, because I wanted to talk about season 1 of Z Nation and kind of where things were at when that started. Talking to you, I know that Mode FX came out of that first season, and we talked a little bit about some of the challenges in that first season. I've gone back to season 1 doing this show and sort of done my deep dive into Z, all things Z Nation, and it's a really good season. I think that it held up pretty well. There's one shot that we won't name that was pretty crazy for that season, but the other ones I thought were fantastic. And that Liberty Bell shot has become sort of iconic for that first season, right? Because it was not only was it a great gag, but the tone. About that guy.
That was certainly for us the first point where I think everyone understood, oh, okay, this is the tone. Because we were doing silly stuff in the first 2 episodes, but we didn't really know what the tone going forward was, because we didn't have any edits by that point. And it really kind of solidified, like, okay, whatever the craziest idea in the room is probably going to be the winning idea.
Yeah.
In the way we go forward. That was the show was interesting, because it really was just kind of figuring it out as we went. And, you know, VFX wise, we didn't really have much. I think we didn't really have a crew when we first started. You know, it was originally going to be, we said, look, there's really no budget for all this stuff that's in the script.
Sure.
So we can't do CGI on this budget. We can just do simple 2D effects.
Okay.
And we should be good. And then, I mean, I was pretty sure that somehow it was going to have to work itself out, and it did. But at first, the producers were like, okay, that sounds good, but you know, the scripts were coming in how they were coming in, how you see them.
Sure.
Sometimes a bit, I mean, they were often a bit more crazy, and we would just work with Carl and the directors, and they were all cool, and we just go, okay, instead of this, does this work? You know, it tells the same story, and it's crazy also, but you know, we're not blowing up all of Las Vegas, but how about we do this instead? You know,
Right.
So
right.
it was,
Well,
yeah, it was a fun process.
That's a great setup because season 1 had a ton of VFX work and a lot of stuff that was pretty interactive and certainly not 2D. So let's look at, this is a Z Nation Mode FX Z Nation season 1 reel. John, roll the clip. Dude, come on. That was awesome. So how many times?
I haven't watched that in a while, so yeah.
How many times have you seen that, though?
What's that?
How many times? I know you said you haven't watched it in a while. How many times have you seen all those clips? Is it like the 1000th time you've watched them as a VFX supervisor?
Yeah, probably. Some of those certainly don't hold up anymore. But I'm relatively happy considering. I mean, keep in mind, I didn't know a single one of the artists we worked with that
Right.
I hired at that point on Z Nation season 1. They
So
were all brand new.
I love the story that you tell about the Liberty Bell.
Hmm.
We had Alex Yellen on our first episode. He talked about shooting it with a green trash can. We saw that in the reel there.
Yeah.
If we could pull up, I think we have a couple clips from the reel. So this is on the right is the Liberty Bell on location.
Yeah.
On the left is the Liberty Bell in the episode. Walk me through how it went from trash can with tape on it to an actual Liberty Bell that has some feel and feels tactile to me as a viewer.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a shot that I don't know completely holds up now, just
Okay.
because if you look at the 3D render, it's a bit this specific shot is a bit on the I don't know, it's got the reflections like the specular and all that. It's not quite up to today's standards, but I was given the budgetary constraints and time constraints. We shot this scene in 4 hours with all the elements and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, this shot is basically. I mean, we knew we needed that bell on the back. I needed something to track to it that's about the same size as the actual Liberty Bell, and the Liberty Bell is smaller than what you would think. It is about that size, maybe even a little smaller. So the straps are real, obviously, and what the garbage can provides us is just tracking for the 3D match move, so we can place.
In baby terms, what it's giving you something with the shape that's similar, right? And those little marks are giving you kind of the perspectives of corners. Is that?
Well, no, I mean what it gives us is it gives us the straps. So I keep the straps.
Got it.
And then fully replace the garbage can with the bell. But what it allows us to do is actually track each one of those crosses and X's of tape and recreate using a program that figures this out. It recreates the actual movement that moved and the camera moved
Right.
in real life.
Right. So John, if you put up that next one, I think so. What was happening is not only was the truck moving, but it turned a corner, right? So there were some.
I think there's about 19 shots, and like I said, I'd never worked with any of the artists that we had hired before at this point, and I was lucky that we got great artists working on this show at the last moment too, because when we first started Z Nation season 1, there was no budget. I think there was budget for maybe 2 or 3 people, and we needed about, we still didn't have a big crew, but we needed about 5 to 8 full-time artists. But on this, our turnaround was so short that we were delivering on Z Nation all through every season. We were delivering on average 80 shots per week, and each episode was about 100 to 120 shots an episode, and that ranges from easy shots to extremely difficult shots.
Right.
So turning just the volume of shots was really difficult. But on that shot, on this sequence, on the Thursday. Now, keep in mind, we had to have all the shots delivered Monday morning by like 8 or 9 a.m. That was the absolute be-all, end-all deadline for that shot. On that Thursday prior, there was one artist that was kind of tasked with doing this entire sequence. On Thursday, he told me, like, look, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. So
at that point, you're just throwing the towel and no, go on.
No, at that point I was like, well, shit. I at that point I personally, I mean, I knew the process to do these shots, but I had never personally done. I just didn't have a background in CG. So I was like, well, I don't have another artist to turn to at this point. So, and everyone else that could potentially do the shots were busy with other shots that were equally complex. So I was like, okay, you do. I asked him, okay, what can you do? What do you feel comfortable doing? He's like, okay, everything once it falls off the truck and hits them, I've got that. And I think that was 9 shots. It's like, all right, screw it. I'll take the other 13 shots or whatever it was. And that's everything that's on the back of the truck. And now keep in mind, I said at that point, I personally had never rendered out CG or anything. I just composited and been a VFX supervisor and, worked with other people that did that. And I, struggling all the way through, and finally on Saturday midday, something clicked and it started to work and make sense. And I was rendering on the same system as I was compositing those shots, and I think it was down to like the minute delivered. We delivered everything for that on time, and that's the sequence you see.
Well, the thing I love about that story, not that you were under pressure, because I mean that's the name of the game in television, but the fact that not only you delivered it and it held up, but that shot and that became such an iconic part of that show and the tone, where it's just like dark and light, humor and horror at the same time, which I think has been the ongoing conversation of Z Nation from then on, and really, yeah. We had a couple things that I wanted to pull out of that reel. This sequence, if you notice, there's a dude on the left. So are you just stuck an actor and then removed his legs so you can get that kind of? That was the vibe there.
Yeah. Yep. Like it, as you see it, we just shot the actor and then we rotoscoped the legs away. Now what we did was we shot the actor. We also then shoot a plate without the actor in there, so you get a clean plate behind. Then we rotoscope the legs away to reveal the clean plate. And then the guts are just some 3D modeled guts and I think some cloth physics, and move them to give them a little gross movement, and then composite it. It's, yeah.
Was there a general sense of trying to always have some practical sort of mixed in with because for me as a filmmaker, I'm watching sometimes, and John, if we have that decaying dude on the desk, we can bring that up. When I'm watching it, my mind goes, oh, I know how they did that. His body is under the table. I thought that green torso was under the table. You cut a hole in the table and he's lying there. I'm like, I figured that out. And then I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, that's pretty clever.
Well, I think we had if I remember correctly, we had originally planned to do that, but it just wasn't, it wasn't looking super great. And I think, and I mean, Carl, whenever you have him on, Carl can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Carl that was like, I'm not really buying it. Can you do something where we just do green and then you guys do the rest? And so that was actually the last shot of season 1 that we shot. So we modeled that, textured that, and then just removed it. And actually the most difficult part, other than the modeling and texturing, creating that, the most difficult part was they had pulled everything because they were excited about being done with the season.
Oh no!
And they're like, oh shit. Hey McKee, do we need a clean plate? I was like, yeah, you got to get a clean plate. We're removing it. So they went and they shot that as best as they could. So if you go back, the clean plate doesn't exactly match. The perspective isn't quite right. but I don't think anyone, yeah.
Two things I'll say to that. First, if you're just joining the show and you don't know Carl, that he's referring to as Carl Schaefer, the showrunner of the show, one of the creators of the show. And I got to say this to you, Jason, I love that you said your name in the third person. Much like the Murphy, McKee was said a lot in production. Will McKee buy this? Do we like this? Well, should we call McKee? It was sort of this like overall threat at some points too. Like if production wasn't going to, deliver something that you could use in post, it was there was the Murphy and then there was the McKee. So I just wanted to say, I don't know if you knew that, when you're back in VFX world.
Yeah, I possibly. I mean, it kind of goes to what you were saying before, where it was like, yes, I tend, even though Z Nation had a lot of VFX and a lot of like quote unquote CGI, I always try to go practical first. And even though it's going to give us work as VFX artists, I try to go practical and I try to sway the production to go practical. But on something like Z Nation, it's a balance between all of the departments. It's like, okay, yeah, I mean, in that last shot you just saw, it's a combination of special effects makeup and VFX and many other departments. But it's a combination going, okay, if you take this, we'll take this, and if we do it in the way that we're planning, it'll work. Rather than just dumping it all on makeup and costumes and special effects or all VFX, that tends to not be the best result. Now, yeah, like on a big budget movie, maybe they can get away with doing it 100% practical, or get perfect results doing it 100% VFX. But we tried to divvy up the responsibilities and try to find that happy medium where it will look as best as we can make it on a limited budget.
I think to that point too, Alex Young was talking about the sort of the ongoing conversation with all the different departments, even from first team production on set. We just saw really quick some headless zombies next to Murphy.
With some problems in the shot. It's a good shot, but there are some problems, and I'm curious if you can find it.
All right, let's bring that back up. And let me see the next one there, John.
It's in this shot.
It's in this shot.
Yeah.
Is it the guy on the right being in the shadows?
Yeah, so the shadow still shows his head.
Yeah, I got it.
But look, it's I think this shot was done at the last minute, and I mean the artist, very good artist that did this, but I mean there was just no time to do every little detail on this show, unfortunately, sometimes. But I don't think I haven't heard anyone call out now, but
only a VFX supervisor would say that. A question from one of our viewers: what was the most difficult VFX you had to create?
Probably throwing 4,000 zombies into the Grand Canyon.
Oh, that's a great shot.
Not because it's necessarily the most difficult for companies to do. It was, how do we do this on our budget? And then also, I live only a few hours away from Palouse Falls, but I'd actually never been there, so I wasn't sure how well it would look. 100% of the footage in the sequence, it's in season 2, episode 10. 100% of that is just Palouse Falls. There's no footage of the actual Grand Canyon.
No augmentation. That's straight up the location.
That is
in Spokane, right near Spokane. How far? Half an hour?
I think 2 hours.
2 hours. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, maybe not even. Okay. I've been meaning to go there. I've just never been there. So when they said, "Oh, it'll look good," I was like, yeah. I've heard that before. Start
researching stills of the Grand Canyon and things you can do with it. Yeah.
So they went with the drone and got some plates, and so that whole sequence there was a lot more shots than we had agreed upon. Also, And it was also two of our biggest episodes, VFX wise, smashed right next to each other. So that became really difficult just in a bandwidth.
Yeah, I mean, do you find similar to like production, like as the season goes on, everybody's bandwidth kind of gets tapped and their energy level might drop? Just the nature of how fast everything moves on the show, right? I mean, it's impossible not to feel it.
No, I mean, it was from my standpoint, I was always good up until, for the first like 3 to 4 weeks of the production. I was always like, hey, I can show up wherever. I'm on everyone else's time. But once we started, we kind of hit the ground running, and it was and we were snowed under. And especially once I would say around episode 11 of every season was shooting. That's when it was really like just, I don't know, you could barely come up for air. There were just so many shots and always something to try to figure out. Luckily, we on that sequence, the Grand Canyon episode, we knew from the beginning of that season that this is a big sequence that we're going to have to do. Yeah. And so we had a month or two to figure out how to pull that off.
So, I mean, it's a great transition because you're talking about planning out, looking ahead to the season and when things are coming up later in the season and how you handle that. So you get through season 1, and then season 2, they're like, hey, Jason, would you like to add something else to the things you're juggling? And you started to direct for the show. Yeah. Season
2, episode 9, I directed. That was the first one I directed, and that was the alien one. So I think I remember John Hyams telling me, he's like, yeah, I saw that script. I was like, nope, I don't want to have anything to do with that one. So yeah, not that he couldn't do it. I mean, probably easily direct a great episode. I think he just did. It was silly or too many VFX or something. I don't know.
Well, I want to ask you that because that one is a VFX heavy one, but we've come to right about 5:30, so I'm going to step away for just a second and remind folks that if you're just joining us, this is Talking Zed, a Z Nation fan show, and next week, Friday, June 5th, Dan Merchant, who's a producer, director, writer on all 5 seasons of Z Nation, will be our guest. Dan was kind enough to let me come along and tag him as a shadowing him as a director. Great friend of mine from the show. We've continued to work together since the show. He's an awesome interview, and he'll be on next Friday, June 5th, same time, same Zoom channel. So if you got something cooking next Friday, if you got nothing cooking next Friday in the quarantine, come join us, and we'll be talking with Dan Merchant. But we're back with Jason McKee, and we were talking about season 2, episode 9, Roswell with a Z. And John Hyams, who was one of the go-to directors from the first season and did a lot. Did he work in every season, John?
He was a producer on the seasons, but he directed for just season 1 and season 2, and now he's the showrunner and main director on Black Summer, both season 1 and season 2.
Right on. And he was John graciously stepped aside to let you take on the great episode Roswell, and I think we might have a promo for Roswell. If we do, John, go run that promo.
Never mind aliens, puppies and kittens, people.
Couple more over here.
10K, you're out.
4,236, 37.
All right, so that wasn't a promo. That was actually the opening credits. We borrow that from Z Nation Brazil, hence the Portuguese at the bottom. But I like getting directed by Jason McKee up there. Talk to me about going into that episode, first time directing on the show. You're familiar with the show, obviously from season 1. But how did it come about? What was the conversation like? Were you nervous going in? Tell me what bring us back to 2015.
Yeah, 2015. I mean, it was, directing is literally a dream come true. So when I remember getting called into what felt like the principal's office, and it was Carl Schaefer, it was John Hyams and Abram Cox, and that's now the Black Summer team, right. Main creative team. And I got called into their office, and I think what it was is we were doing an episode where I'm trying to think now exactly how it went, but they go, oh, okay, look, on the next episode that's coming up, we're thinking about doing 100 zombie animals that are all CG. And look, I mean, at that point we were already stressed. I was like, oh, okay. And then I see them start to like all bust up laughing. And we're like, we're just messing with you. Here, look at this board, and it had the board of all the. It was a whiteboard of all the episodes. Like, can you help? Oh, that's what it was. It was, can you help us with this? And they're pointing at it, and it's episode 9, and it has what's in it. It has all the VFX kind of broken out, just broad strokes, and they were like, zombie animals 1,000 or something ridiculous of it. And it said, can you help us figure this out? And I'm like, just looking at that. And above it, it says director Jason McKee. And I was like, oh man, and I'm just like sweating bullets trying to figure out how the hell to pull this off, without having to just blanket say no. And they go, no, like specifically right in this area. And they're just circling my name. And then I finally see it, and they're busting up laughing. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? Seriously? And so that was the way they broke it to me. It was a fun
awesome
time. And Juan Moss directed episode 10, the Grand Canyon one, who's a good friend also and a local filmmaker. He also found out that same day that he was asked if he would direct that episode too. And he was a second unit director for all the seasons. Right. And so that was a good surprise and a fun way to find that out.
Well, I think we have one of the really cool alien kills from that episode.
Nice.
Okay. John, you could play that.
To me till the end.
So at that point, we are definitely 100% into the X-Files.
Yeah.
Yeah, and best memory from directing that episode.
I mean, the whole thing was great. I was able to to work with a crew that I've grown up literally since I was a teenager working with. They saw me go from a production assistant to a director, a professional paid director now, so that was cool. Getting to work with the cast and crew. I just said the cast. I don't know. I'm saying it all backwards. You get what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Getting to work with the cast as a director was cool, and then also getting to work with Missy Pyle and Doug Jones, who had done amazing stuff prior and have continued to do amazing projects since. So
I was going to ask you. I know her face. What do we know Missy Pyle from? What's her biggest claim to fame?
Well, Missy Pyle was in. She's been in a ton of stuff. Dodgeball as the unibrow woman. She was also in Tim Burton's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I can never remember which one is which. She was also. She's been in a ton of. I think she was in Big Fish, and quite a bit since. I think she was just in Ma. Came out earlier this year or last year.
And Doug Jones, of course, has been in everything, and he's on Discovery for Star Trek, and
I mean, Doug Jones, Pan's Labyrinth. He was every character in that pretty much.
Right. All right. So, hey, if you're just joining us, on the screen below, Jason, you can see a Q&A button. Hit the Q&A button. You can ask us some questions in real time. It'll pop up on your screen, on my screen, and if you like the question that's being asked and you give it a thumbs up, it'll move it to the top of the queue. We're talking with Jason McKee, who's a visual effects supervisor and started directing episodes in season 2. That was your first episode, season 2, Roswell. And then came up to season 3. And what was the episode you did in season 3?
That was called A Scorpion and the Red Hand.
Okay.
And that one was that one was a lot of fun. I got to work with Emilio Rivera on that one.
Right.
And that one, I'm pretty proud of that one.
I think we've got a promo for that one queued up. This is season 3, episode 5. A Scorpion and the Red Hand.
Cure is coming.
Murphy wants to save humanity by turning them into human zombie blends.
Oh, well, that's not the last time that's going to happen.
Not exactly the party I had in mind.
What's the matter? You're not one of those anti-vaxxers, are you?
Zed Nation.
So this was a very different type of episode, right? I mean, this seemed to be a lot more action-packed. I mean, not that the Z Nation episodes never have action, but this one seemed particularly to just be constantly moving from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, that one was. This one was also a lot more story-driven as part of the overarching storyline for the season. Roswell and the unknowns in season 4 were very much kind of movie of the weeks. But this one was part of that. Yeah, part of the main story. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was kind of a nice balance between, story, dialogue-driven scenes and non-stop action.
So by the time you got to this one in season 3, was it old hat or nothing, no big deal?
I don't know. I don't know if I would say it was old hat. It was. I mean, each one presents their own challenges,
Right. There was a large action sequence in this one with a hubcap sequence, and we pulled a bit of that up. This is from season 3, episode 5, A Scorpion and the Red Hand. This is a 10K action sequence that I'd love to pull up. that's just goofy fun.
So
Tell me,
what's that?
how much time did you have to do that whole sequence?
So that's a cool scene, but I didn't actually direct that scene. That's not from my episode. That's from Juan Moss's episode. The numbers got kind of messed up because season 3 had a movie that was 1 and 2. So in some places, episode 5 and 4 and 6 are different numbers.
Well, then let me ask you this, and apologies, I want to double check that. You've got a mixture of practical things happening and visual effects that obviously your team would then come in and do some stuff on. When you have a hit to the head and you've got something piercing them, how is that generally done on Z Nation? Is there something in their hand? Is it empty and you add that? Talk to me about the parts of that were yours.
Yeah, it's usually a hilt, so it'll be part of a prop, but it's just something for the actor to hold on to. Now, if that's going to actually come into contact with someone's face, it probably won't be anything, and they'll just do that motion, and then we put either a 3D object, or just, if it's quick, sometimes you can get away with a 2D element, but for the most part, it's usually a 3D object or model. And
are you also sort of like timing it? Let's say, like, you know, the visual, there's no way that fist got anywhere near the head, or are you changing speeds of the ramp up, hiding that? What are some of the other techniques?
Sometimes you have to cut their arm off and reposition it to where it hits exactly where it needs to be. Yeah. That's always fun to try to retime that. But for the most part, because the action's so quick, you can make those fixes kind of in editorial. You go, okay, what if we use this take instead of this? Is that okay? And then we can, this one works better than this one does, and so yeah, we make those changes if we can prior to it getting to VFX.
Well, that was a question we had from one of our viewers. Like, how much input does a director have on the scripts as far as VFX? Is it there? When you're wearing the director hat, and you're coming as a director, they say you have 40 shots in this episode. Shoot the script to a way that you can achieve that with 40 shots. Is that kind of the edict in television?
Yeah, I mean, it's a director. A director has a lot of say over I guess it depends on the showrunner and who the showrunner is, but Carl afforded the directors a lot of creative input, and if it wasn't in line with what he wanted, then he would it'd be a conversation and he would say so. But for the most part, it was a very fun and collaborative process. And yeah, directors have a ton of say. As a VFX supervisor, I had a ton of say in that, because I mean, no one wants it to look like hot garbage, know. And if I say this is not gonna ever look good with this amount of time, with this amount of budget, but here we can give you this, and it tells the same story, and it's also fun. It's a little different than what's written. Is that cool? It was always, it's just a collaborative process of back and forth, and that generally worked really well.
Well, I love that, because again, we're going back to that ongoing conversation that we were talking about with all departments. And if you don't have that, that's where you end up with looking like hot garbage, I think was the term you just used. I'm going to feel that. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Here's a clip from an episode that I know you directed, because I was actually there when this was happening. This is from season 5, episode number 11.
11, yes.
Hackerville. And it has another Jersey boy actor in it that is kind of near and dear to my heart. This is season 10, episode 11, Hackerville.
Season 5, episode.
Season 5.
Yeah, I wish we had 10 episodes.
Right here we have Girl Boom's Node. It is awesome. Look at it. It's a fine setup. She did it all herself. And this is Girl Boom. She learned the code at the young age of 8. Genius. Her dad taught her, man. And guess what?
Who's that?
Oh, this is Skip Brickle. Weighing in at 220 pounds. He is the richest man in the world. He specializes in cryptocurrency accounts, man. He's been finding and harvesting Bitcoin mines that are still in operation for a long time now.
Bitcoins. Where are you gonna spend that?
Hey, man, sometimes hacking is the journey.
What about him?
Oh, that guy. That is Bones, man. He is old school. He is from the old freak phone era. You know, when the Captain Crunch whistle was the keys to the kingdom?
I remember it well.
Like a ninja on a keyboard. Sweet and sexy.
Why hasn't he turned feral?
Well, you know, when you got one talker, a bag of biscuits go a long way.
Woo! What was it like working with Jason Mewes?
I mean, it was awesome. Yeah, he's super fun and exactly like what you see, you know? It's, yeah.
All scripted, or how much of that did he improvise?
He improvised a little bit, but for the most part, it was all scripted. And I mean, there was a lot of difficult dialogue in that episode. That's all techie, you know, techno babble. And it was, I mean, he did awesome. But yeah, of course, we allowed him to play and all the other actors, and that was a good episode to do that, because it's a pretty fun episode, a lot of comedy. So yeah. You know, he was able to throw in the snoochy boochies and when, you know, his other catchphrases in there.
Well, Jason, you sent us a lot of clips of some of your other directing work. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and jump into a few of those. One of the ones that kind of struck me, just kind of looking and knowing your VFX background, was Strong.
Okay.
And this is I've queued up a piece of it, kind of leaning into the VFX side of things, so you kind of get where I'm coming from. This is a scene from an original that you wrote and directed.
Yeah.
Explain yourself. How did this come about?
So that one was for a submission for an online film festival that I did last year, and it was really more of an excuse to work with my nieces and nephews who are non-actors, but it was like, hey, let's do this. And also that was it was required to be shot 100% on a phone and be completed in 1 month. Now, with that said, I didn't even know about it until there was only 2 weeks left. So I shot it, wrote it in like a day, shot it in a day, and then did the VFX in, you know, like I don't know, edited it, and then did the VFX and sound design it over the course of about a week and a half or a week. So that was a crazy schedule, because there's a lot of VFX in that in just a 3-minute video.
Did the VFX idea come to you first? You know, you're sitting there and you're like, I know what I can do VFX wise, because I'm a VFX guy. Did you back out of that and kind of lead up to it?
No, it was more just a what would be a fun story to tell in a short amount of time, And then I guess, what would be fun for my nieces and nephews to be able to watch? I mean, if I were their age and I had myself like a video of myself doing that with like superpowers, I think that'd be pretty awesome. So to look back on and just go, and probably brag and show my friends and whatnot. Like, look, I remember, I think he was like 8 or 9 in that, and that was just last year. So, but his younger sister, who was maybe 4, was scared by him after seeing that, and possibly still is.
That's
so
awesome.
he was using that to antagonize her whenever he wanted.
Well, here's another one that you sent my way that frankly kind of scared me. I don't know how to pronounce it. Do you have a pronunciation, or is it just the Russian short?
I just sent you the Russian thing, but it means young genius in Russian.
Young genius. All right, John, can you play that? So how did that come about? What is the what am I watching? My mind just exploded.
So that's another one of those where it's like a friend and I were talking and found this like film festival contest where it was a 30-second short, and you had to like deliver it within a month or a few weeks or something. But it's a 30-second short, and it was done for a big I can't remember exactly the radio station, but it's from Chicago, and it was with Wes Craven. Wes Craven was judging all of them, and it was a 30-second short horror, couldn't be longer. And yeah, I was like, and in talking with my friend who was the DP on it, Brian Gosselin, he and I were like, look, you're probably not going to truly scare anyone in 30 seconds. So let's try to at least be intriguing and leave it at that.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It is one of those more obscure, strange, maybe David Lynchian-ish.
It felt like to me like a piece of a main title sequence.
Yeah.
It had that tone. We've got a clip coming up here from a short called Marty, but John was reminding me that did Wes say he put it in his top 4? Yeah.
We were he dug it, I guess. So,
yeah.
And that was right before he passed.
Right. Yeah. Well, hey man, if Wes Craven had said that about me, I would lead with that. Like, hi, my name is Jason. Wes Craven put me in his top 4 McKee. So kudos to you, man. So I picked this clip from Marty because I just love the editing style.
Oh, cool.
This is him on the phone, kind of talking about all these conspiracy theories. Love it.
Don't let it get in your way. Those are her words, not mine.
Well, yes, generally I've regarded the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA for short, as a criminal organization. Just look at Operation Northwoods, for example. This is a series of proposed false flag operations that were designed to scare the American public into thinking that the recent rash of terrorist attacks were actually committed by an out-of-control, irresponsible Cuban government, thus gaining the support of any kind of military action or takeover against such a regime. Now this, while written by the Joint Chiefs of Staff and supported by the Secretary of Defense, was aggressively shut down by President John F. Kennedy himself. Now, coincidence that just a year later, he was assassinated, and with the stench of the CIA all over it? I think not. And this is not the first time attacks have happened from within. Now, just look at the sinking of the Lusitania. This is what helped propel us into World War I. False flag! Just look at the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Something that didn't even happen. Something that even McNamara even later admitted to. Oh yeah, what a great way to get us into Vietnam. False flag. And this is just what they decided to tell us about. Operation Northwoods was just recently declassified. When will the attacks of September 11th be declassified? Huh? But that's just a fraction of what I know. But go on, ask me about more. I know loads more. Hello. Hello.
Dude, I love it. How much of that was planned? How much of it did you find in the edit? The little bit of, there's a couple stutter repeats, which I really thought the pacing was great.
So that actually came from, it was supposed to be one just following long shot.
Yeah.
But the problem was, you know, we didn't have a proper steady cam to get it good. So I would get a small chunk that was good, and then a big, you know, jolt when we stepped off a curb or something. Also, that's quite a mouthful to say in one take, and he did amazing. But it was tough to get all the best parts in one. So that was, when I was cutting it, that kind of came out of just the necessity that the footage dictated. And I actually liked the fact that it opened up that, oh, he does this a lot, you know. That what I try to do with all my personal side projects is try to do something different every time. And this one, that one was more of a look into who, you know, okay, who are the real people that, you know, the quote unquote crazy person on the bus, they have a real life, and they're not just a crazy person. So on the outside, or from the outside looking in, they might seem that way, but I wanted to have a little more thoughtful look into what a character like that might be. So that obviously is one of his more manic episodes. But yeah, the editing style definitely came out of finding it in the edit. And that's why I like to edit my own stuff when I direct, because it's just part of the process. I can rewrite it and and change things and kind of reveal things like that as I'm editing.
So Jason, you've got a couple other shorts, and we're kind of getting to the end of our time today, but do you have an online presence? How can people follow you if they want to see other shorts? Are you active in Spokane film festivals? Where can people follow JD McKee if they wanted to? I mean,
I guess on Twitter or Instagram, and I'm not super active on there, but yeah, and I don't even know what the handles are anymore, but yeah, I am on there. Yeah, there's a YouTube channel that they can go to. I should probably start being more active on that.
Right on.
So.
Cool. Well, I've heard through the grapevine, and I think it was you who probably just told me that you're actually super busy at the moment doing some posts on something. We can't talk anything about it, but we can say that you're working on it, right? Are we allowed to say that you're working on it?
Yeah, we can say we're working on it. I just can't say specifics.
So you're working on Star Wars? No, you're working on.
I'm working on Black Summer Season 2 with John Williams and Carl Schaefer and Abram Cox, and I'm VFX supervising, and Mode FX is doing the VFX for Season 2.
Dude, that's awesome! Congratulations. That fills my heart with joy to hear that. John, let's put up the promo for next week. Just a reminder, if you like what we're doing here today, we'll be back next week on Friday, same Zoom channel, same Zoom time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, with Dan Merchant. Man, if we could find a picture of him less excited. I don't know if there's one on the internet. He was a writer, director, producer on worked on all 5 seasons of the show. And Dan and I have become friends coming off of the show, and also have worked on the Black Summer spinoff as well. So that'll be up next Friday, same Zoom time, same Zoom channel. Jason, I figured since you got so many great things to share with us, we could leave with this is Jason McKee's directing reel. I thought that might be a neat way for us to end the show. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy out there working VFX for Black Summer, but it was awesome. And again, I hope you're doing well in the quarantine. Thank you for being a part.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you for having me. This is fun.